country.
Well, I've seen and Ukraine's NATO facility.
Muted, and we are live. Larry Johnson, my good friend, happy to have you again here this week. Well,
back in the
happy
saddle.
to still be alive.
Back in the
And
saddle.
back home. Larry, how was your last week? You've been to Moscow. You met a lot of very interesting people. How was the experience again in Moscow?
Well, Moscow is I'll call it otherworldly in terms of how it is perceived in the West and the reality on the ground. Modern city, beautiful architecture, historic. I saw, during the plane ride over, they had a commercial on. It involved Donald Trump bragging about how magnificent the White House is. And then if you go look at the pictures of the Kremlin, what's inside the Kremlin? The U.S. White House looks like an outhouse compared to that. Looks like a nice, fully furnished outdoor toilet, but let's not kid ourselves that it's some magnificent grand structure. And I'm sure when the Russians, whenever they came to visit before, they were polite saying, it's like someone shows you their baby and the baby's ugly and you got to sit there and go, oh, what a lovely child, instead of saying that's the ugliest damn kid I've ever seen. Talk to a lot of new friends and new acquaintances, but also just had a chance at the conference. People would come up to me wanting to have their picture taken with me. I don't know why, but and a lot of young people. People under the age of 30. So it does, and they were thrilled. One young lady came up and somehow this name Tucker Carlson came up and she was like, oh, I'm such a fan of Tucker. Well, I've got some contact with Tucker. So I said, here, let me take a quick video of you. Say hi to Tucker. And she said, oh, hi, Tucker. And then she started crying.
So cute.
And I sent it on to Tucker, and he immediately responded, oh, that's nice. He was flattered. So,
Cool.
The world, we live in this enormous world, billions of people, but it's actually a small world where, I look back at now over the last 3 years, before the start of the special military operation, I didn't know you. I didn't know Alex Mikuris or Alexander Cristoforo, Tom Luongo, Alex Craner, John Mearsheimer, Doug McGregor, Pepe Escobar in particular. Pepe is a great friend, and Alistair Crook and his wife Ashley. So in a way, from the different personal relationships, Nima, let's not forget Nima, he'd be pissed off. Judge Napolitano. Developing new friends just enriches one's life. And that's not to mention the acquaintances I've made overseas with Professor Morandi, Syrian girl, Eva Bartlett. The list goes on, and it's a reminder of sort of what the world could be. And don't forget Ania K, the great Polish friend. So we have a vision of what the world can be with that kind of interaction and exchange, and people just being friends. But unfortunately, we are in a very, very dark, dangerous time. I think Donald Trump is crazy. I think he should be removed from presidency under the 25th Amendment immediately. His behavior is increasingly erratic, and he's got to be stopped. But what he's going to do is he's going to attack Iran under the pretext of, we're just trying to stop Iran from having enriching uranium. And now they're going to add to it, they can't have any more ballistic missiles. Iran's the first country to actually fight back against Israel in a significant way. Yeah, the Houthis were launching some ballistic missiles, but they were for the most part just more of a nuisance than a threat. Iran has actually hit significant targets in Israel. Israel's covering up. They're not reporting it. They pretend it didn't happen, and it didn't happen. Yet, if it didn't happen, then why is now Trump so insistent on destroying those, getting rid of those? And the United States has not learned any lessons. I mean, we couldn't stop the Houthis, but now we're going to take on Iran, a much larger country, much more robust defenses. I mean, 20 years ago, I was involved with the U.S. military exercises that were looking at how you target these underground facilities in Iran. Now, do you think that in the intervening 20 years that Iran hasn't done something to bolster those capabilities, to move additional operations and industrial activities underground? Absolutely. And this wild notion that if we just keep assassinating top-level people, the government's going to fall apart. It can actually create a real change in policy, go from moderation to actual, ultimate, let's wipe Israel off the face of the earth. So, dangerous time.
Yes, you mentioned something. We had discussed this here in the channel already about this, especially when it happens to Panier and then Sinwar and the Hezbollah leader. I forgot his name now. Nasrallah.
Hassan
Yeah.
Nasrallah.
Hassan Nasrallah. We had discussed these decapitations techniques, and to a level, yeah, it does bring things to calm for a moment, but then movements regenerate, and as you just mentioned, you can get some real hardliners, and we can give as a great example Russia. We have on one side Putin and the other side Medvedev. I don't think it's good for anyone to have a Medvedev instead of Putin in power. I'm not sure, but
yeah, Medvedev he's been there before, and he didn't start a war then, but and he is a lawyer like Putin, but Putin is a much more cautious, thoughtful. He really keeps his emotions in check. Medvedev is one who lets his emotions get expressed more openly than say Putin. It is, it was sort of a joke, but not really, to note that these Jewish leaders have been engaged in decapitation strategies going back to the crucifixion of Jesus. How'd that work out? Yeah, that ended that movement, didn't it? It birthed Christianity. And, when you look at all the times that different leaders of Hamas have been killed over the last 25 years, is that, Hamas hasn't disappeared. In fact, look at all the death and destruction that's taken place over the last 21 months. Hamas is still standing, still killing Israelis. The same with Hezbollah. The death of Nasrallah the Israelis celebrate that decapitation. Oh boy, that ends that threat. And it's like, seriously, they really believe that. And it's just by the same token, kill Netanyahu. Well, you still got 82% of the Israeli population saying that they want to, eliminate the Palestinians, expel all the Gazans from their land. So that I said, just killing one leader, that's the stuff that Hollywood movies are based on. It's sort of a naive juvenile theory. Again, it goes back to that Adolf Hitler was the lone person that started World War II. That if he just got rid of Adolf, man, the world would have been fine. And I'd suggest that that's not true. It is true that when you can kill certain people, like when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, killing him ended a chance for a genuine reconstruction of the South, a reconciliation between the South and the North, and really put an end to slavery. But that's not what happened, and he was replaced by a virulent racist, Andrew Johnson. Thank God, no relationship to me. But the death of certain leaders can affect how policy. It does have an effect on policies and priorities for governments, but it doesn't necessarily cause the fundamental change that I know that Israel's desperate to get right now. This attack, their surprise attack on Iran, hasn't quite worked out, and just as we came on air, Iran has now launched the 10th wave of missile strikes at Israel. Don't know how many. The Israelis in the last 24 hours were saying, "Oh, they just fired. They were only able to fire 20 this last time." But how many of those hit? Well, we don't know, because Israel shut down the internet. It's shut down reporters. It's confiscating cameras. It's turning off video feeds. Geez, if these missile strikes by Iran were so ineffective, why do you got to do that? You should be showing, hey, man, look, we're blowing them out of the sky. That's not what's happened. So, it's more lies.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed on Twitter, for example, is that, Khamenei has his own Twitter account, verified. Verified, not blue check mark, the gray check mark, the leader check mark. After the first strike from Israel, Khamenei's profile came out and say, okay, Israel assassinated, martyrized these and these generals and these and these scientists. It was very public. Very public. Now you see, day after day, hour after hour, missiles. I get videos. Some videos can flow out of this barrage, and you see great destruction. And Israel comes out and say, they injured 5 people. That's at least weird. We kill 400. They kill 20. Yeah. Who are those 20? Give me the names. Tell the names. Who are these people?
Yeah, again, Iran is not making it a priority to target civilian areas or just apartments per se. They've hit the oil refinery in Haifa. They've hit a power plant in Haifa. They've hit
the airport,
the Ben Gurion Airport, just outside of Tel Aviv. They've hit the Israeli Defense Headquarters. They're their equivalent of the Pentagon. So but they've hit a lot of bases. The Nevatim Air Base and other air bases outside that there's no real video of it, and that's okay. Israel can pretend that nothing happened there, but apparently this time Iran is being much more precise in its targeting. So we'll see. But what's clear is Donald Trump's going to attack. In fact, he just, in the last 6 hours, he was asked a question on the plane by Caitlin Collins of CNN. noting that Tulsi Gabbard, his director of national intelligence, had testified before Congress that Iran doesn't have a nuke and is not building a nuke. And Trump said, I don't believe her. I have never, in my, I've been affiliated with the U.S. intelligence community in one form or fashion starting in 1985. Never have I heard a president speak in such a disrespectful way, such a condescending way about the director of central intelligence or director of national intelligence. I think Tulsi Gabbard has no other choice but to resign and do it in a public way to denounce Trump going to war on false pretenses. We'll see if she does that. I can see her arguing that she needs to stay just so that the voice and opposition voice can continue to be raised. But this, cutting her out and then actually this was an attack on her credibility. That's the most precious thing that any analyst, any intelligence director has. They can't afford to be perceived as lying or cooking the truth. And here's Trump publicly admitting he's not paying attention to the intelligence. That he's his own intelligence. Well, that's dangerous right there. And then all the neocon crowd now is lining up to kiss his ass big time. Mike Huckabee sending this note about, oh, Jesus, God saved you, brother, saved you from death. You have been appointed by God as God's messenger. Sorry, I'm doing my Southern Baptist preacher routine, or one of those television preachers.
Perfect.
That said, "Come to Jesus and send me a check while you're at it. Give me some money."
We had just to add to this, we had a comedian, an old comedian in Brazil. He's dead already. He had a character called Tim Tons. It was supposed to mime Jim Jones.
Oh, Jim Jones.
I will send you videos later. It's very like that.
Yeah. Well, so they're basically saying, hey, Trump, you've been ordained by God to go kill a bunch of Iranians. And I did a little bit of a rant on Nima's program yesterday as well with respect to, so much of the United States and the Christian community, the evangelical community it's held hostage by what I call the Old Testament mythology. They've been brainwashed into believing, oh, this is the holy word of God. This came from God's fingers. And so it's all God's. And yet, the messages in that Old Testament are pretty contradictory and confusing. Because initially you're told that, hey, God created man and male and female. He didn't say God created Jews and then all you other scum. God created everyone. That means every man, woman, child, regardless of what religious faith they profess, at least from, the standpoint of Christians, all are creatures or creations of God. All are a manifestation of the Supreme Being. But the Old Testament tells us, hey, I'm God and I play favorites. If you're Jewish, and again, it started off with 12 tribes, but 10 of those tribes have somehow disappeared. And we're now only left supposedly with 2. So the 2 tribes, get everything that the other 10 were supposed to have as well. And they get to kill whoever they want. They get to take whatever land that they decide, hey, God said this is our land. How do we know? Well, God told us. Oh, you didn't hear it? Well, sorry. You're not hearing voices. That's sort of a sign of a symptom of schizophrenia, if you ask me. So they get to declare this land is our land, and we get to kill you for it. In other words, their God plays favorites. Their God likes only the Jews, and all you other Gentiles, you're unclean, unwashed. That's why You see, some of the Hasidic, the Haredi in Jerusalem spitting on Christians. You slime, scum. I will say, I got a problem with any theological belief like that. And, I'm not confining it to, whatever that is. If that's what Judaism is, well, no part of it. That's not a great religion. That's an abomination. Great religion is one that embraces humanity, cherishes human beings, and insists that, and then look, the same thing applies. I don't believe if Islam insists that the Jews must be murdered, then shame on them. I would like the murdering and killing to stop. It's become the favored pastime of different rulers, and here again we are now faced with another gaslighting scam being played upon the American people. We got to stop Iran because they're going to have nukes. We got to stop Saddam Hussein because he's got weapons of mass destruction. Yeah. Thank you.
Have the
Thank
proof.
you,
I have
Colin
the
Powell.
proof.
Yeah, thank you, Colin Powell.
Yeah, what you just described very much sound to me like, in Middle Age or in the 1500s, the excuse of Christians to enslave Africans, Native Americans, Indians. These people doesn't have soul, doesn't have whatever. But that was the 1500s. This kind of rhetoric, people are more or less just all the knowledge they had was religion. We are into 2025. We cannot go ahead like that. We just cannot go ahead like that.
Yeah. Well, and then you get racism like what was exhibited within Mormonism. The Book of Mormon says, "Oh, God cursed these people with dark skin. If you're light skinned, you're godly. If you're dark skinned, you're evil." Yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, this I do draw a line with a lot of this religious garbage that's been accepted as somehow, divinely inspired, because it's used to justify actual policies and to inspire actions in the real world, which end up with a result in the death and destruction of other human beings who supposedly are God's creation. So this, to me, it sounds like this is some sort of demonic power, wanting to see how many, the more of God's creations this demonic force can destroy, the better. Now there's the thought.
Yeah, Larry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put this into theology hour.
No, it's come on. Since the first program that we recorded at that time, it was not live streaming; it was recorded together. I've been thinking about this, and we have discussed this. Literally, that's almost 2 years ago, and we were already talking about. It just had happened. The Hamas strike on Israel, and everything started to burn on the area. And since then, seems like nothing has changed whatsoever. I mean, we are here almost 2 years on the road, and we are still talking about the same things. And it's very important. I remember perhaps telling you that at that time, perhaps not at that time, but later on, that I could just see this as another holy war, just not simply a third world war, but another holy war that seems like endless. It seems like never goes away. People just cannot go along with each other in a manner that is extremely troubling to myself, to my perception. You started the show tonight. Well, tonight for me, for you is 2 afternoon. Just saying something that is amazing for me. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, we didn't know each other. I didn't know a lot of people. You mentioned several people that have been here in the channel as well, and great people. I mean, I don't remember having one conversation here with anyone that I was like, I did not enjoy that. And Amazing people. And how can we bring this big perspective, this embracing of humanity? Because that's more or less what we're trying to do here. We're just, meeting people from all around the planet that share the same views.
Yeah.
With caveats. Well, one will think one thing that is different to another, but in the end, in the end of the day, we all respect each other when we come to shows like this, like your channel, like several channels. How can we make it even more appealing to people? I don't even know if I want to ask that, because this is a very complicated question.
Well, it's not so much what we create are at least alternatives where people can come and listen and discuss. There, it's really a two-edged sword. The proliferation of social media has just flooded the zone with so much information that it requires a fairly sophisticated level of critical thinking to try to sort out the wheat from the chaff, the truth from the bullshit. And it's not easy. And it is quite easy for people to be, to create a narrative that is quite appealing to, particularly people that have been shut out or oppressed or, are not, not that bright, don't really have a high level of critical thinking, and then will, rope them into a belief. So, that's the downside. On the other hand, though, it does give us a way to break free. Last night, Donald Trump called Tucker Carlson kooky. For Carlson suggested that if Trump went down this path of war with Iran, that it could very well lead to the destruction of his presidency, which I think Tucker's exactly right. And then Trump made this just asinine remark, well, maybe Tucker ought to get himself a network where people will actually listen to him. Stupid.
What?
Yeah, stupid. Not realizing that Tucker's got more people watching him now than when he was on Fox News. In fact, he's got more people watching than watch Fox News, CNN, MSNBC combined. It just goes to show that Trump is he's dangerous. He is a threat to peace, and he's I think within the next 24 hours, the United States is going to be attacking Iran, and then that means that U.S. bases in the Middle East will be attacked. And the U.S. it will be a war between the United States and Israel on one hand, and Iran with the backing of Russia and China. This is I fear, going to get out of hand.
This is exactly what we are all fearing, because while it's contained to a proxy like it is in Ukraine, and like it was perhaps supposed to be between Israel and Iran, that's contained. But once the gloves are off everywhere. And this is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, Trump has just tweeted, put out on Truth Social, that Iran must unconditional surrender. Okay.
Look, recently I've seen the IDF pages on Twitter, profile on Twitter, tweeting that Iran has missiles for 20 days. Then they said that Israel is the only barrage against Iran to the rest of the world. Now you have this. You have to unconditionally surrender. This sounds so familiar.
Yeah. Well, this, again, the danger here is the Western calculation is that Iran is on its own, that Russia and China are going to do nothing. I think that is wrong, because I think Russia and China recognize that this attack on Iran has nothing to do with the so-called enrichment of uranium or Iranian sponsorship of terrorism. This is about just regime change and putting in place a government in Iran that will be a lackey, a toady, a slave of the United States, one that we can then use Iran to destroy Russia. If the Russians don't understand that yet, they better damn well wake up and realize that's what the hell is going on. And they better do everything in their power to help Iran fend off this unjustified, illegal, criminal aggression by the United States.
And by Israel. And by Israel.
Well,
It's
Israel did it
important.
with the direct encouragement and support of the United States. Israel couldn't, without U.S. support, Israel couldn't do this.
Donald Trump basically bragged about this in his first True Social post.
Yeah.
He just, our amazing weapons did what they did, and yeah, now they are getting their asses handled to them in a silver plate.
Yep.
By Iranian missiles. The lame Iranian missiles. Yeah, Larry, this is getting completely out of hand. Do you think this can escalate to a nuclear exchange?
Look, here's another one. Trump just said, we know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out yet, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. What a madman. We are witnessing a level of insanity from Donald Trump that he has lost his goddamn mind. And there are people cheering him and allowing this to go forward. This is an existential threat to the world. He is going to plunge the world into a nuclear war if this continues.
We were worried about Biden and Kamala.
God. I'm not, if Kamala was there, we may very well have been in the same situation, maybe. I mean, other people would be controlling, running the show. But yeah, this is just a different kind of cancer. Both are lethal.
Very, very lethal one. Do you think, this is a completely idiot question, do you think they put something in the White House water, Larry, so people get drugged or something like that?
I think Trump just mentally is slipping. I think it's the part of its age. This is his George H.W. Bush moment. George H.W. Bush, back when you were a youngster, said, "Read my lips, no new taxes." And he then raised taxes, and he then lost the presidency. Now, Trump is not up for re-election, but Trump's control of the Congress, Trump's control of this, the House and Senate is going to go away. I know that going forward, I'll do everything I can to defeat Donald Trump and anyone that supports him based upon this. This is, what Trump has done is he's really created a rift in the base. People like me, were willing to support him on the presumption that he was sincere about not starting new wars, sincere about giving peace the priority, sincere about limiting the abusive power of government. And instead, he's become the same thing that he claimed that he wasn't. He is now leading this country to war.
Not some war, to a very, very dangerous war. Very dangerous war. Not only the United States, as it looks like. It's Jesus Christ. These people are completely out of their mind. Man. You see, what we have to face in the rest of the world. We have to count on, North American people to rise against the government so we can perhaps survive. This is what we face in the rest of the planet. This is
Yeah. No, this is. I said
so
this
frustrating.
this is a nightmare. This is a veritable nightmare.
And so, pivoting away a little bit back to inside the United States, we're seeing these things on California, these riots. How do you read this? Because I don't even know how to ask this. This seems very, color revolutionary.
Yeah, well, it is. No, it is. Listen, it's funded from outside. It's contrived. The Trump had a broad base that was on certain issues, that stopping the flow of illegal migrants, making sure that those illegals that have engaged in criminal activity are apprehended and either incarcerated or expelled from the United States, bringing back jobs, good jobs, manufacturing jobs to the United States, and staying out of foreign wars. Those three pillars, and getting government spending under control. Let's call it the fourth pillar. Well, what has Trump done? He has sort of delivered on he has stopped the flow of illegal migrants into the United States, and they are in the process of deporting. So that's working. Bringing jobs back, that's not going as well. His tariff bullying tactics have sort of blown up in his face. But now he's starting foreign wars. And he's expanding this war with Iran. And, the problem with it is the United States, he genuinely believes that the United States is as powerful and invulnerable as he thinks we are. And he's going to find out that's not the case. And it's not just, Russia and China, I do not believe, are going to stand idly by and let Iran be destroyed by the United States. Not going to happen. Or let me put it, if that does happen, then they're next. And but what we're looking at is a future of terrible, terrible wars, because Russia will not go quietly. Russia will not break up, be overthrown by regime change. Yet, the true irony out of this will be if there's actually a regime change in the United States as a result of these crazed policies. But what Trump's doing right now is dangerous. And he's literally, I think he's lost his grip on reality. Someone like Tulsi Gabbard needs to come out, speak out publicly, resign. And if she did that, she would become a focal point for rallying many people against what Trump is doing.
Yeah, and look how amazing this is. His great friends, let's say, kind of like that. Tulsi Gabbard was pro-Trump on the elections. Elon Musk, that the other day they had a big role, very interesting exchange, and Tucker Carlson, perhaps the three major pushers of his campaign. I will not say majors, of course. He
they played a significant role. And watch Joe Rogan. I think Joe Rogan's going to go off on Trump too now.
Oh boy.
Trump is doing real damage to himself, and he's not going to get his big, beautiful bill through. But this is the problem. Is this? It's broader than Trump, because Trump is now pandering to blood-crazed senators and representatives that are egging him on, begging for this. And it just, Like I said, it's going to blow up in her face.
Exactly. Larry, I don't even know if I want to ask you more questions today. Things are, I usually enjoy our conversations because they are happy, but today, even the fun parts,
Yeah, today's not happy.
it's not happy day. It's not happy day.
Today is alarming.
It's very alarming. It's
Yeah.
very, very, very alarming. I had one more thing I wanted to ask, but
Okay,
at this
well,
point,
go
I
ahead.
think
Go ahead and
I
ask.
think I completely forgot it.
Okay.
I completely forgot it. Larry, I just hope things go at some track because it's very alarming what's going on. And what could we do? This is one important. What we are doing this. We are trying to bring some perspective for people to understand things. What else could we do?
Wherever you live, clamor to your political leaders demanding that they speak out and defy Trump, oppose him. They may not have much clout, but at least the world needs to know that what Trump is doing is not being received around the world. It's being, people. I think people are genuinely shocked at how reckless, erratic, audacious Donald Trump is on this issue. It is I can personally no longer give the man the benefit of the doubt. There is, there's no saving grace now with Donald Trump as far as I'm concerned. He is a stain on the reputation of America. At this point, we still have some freedom to speak out and condemn what he's doing and those who support him in this, but it's pure evil.
I think I'm going to end with that. That's perfect, Larry.
All right, my friend.
Everybody, thank you very much, everybody that come to watch us. You remember that the links are on the description. Like, share, subscribe. Subscribe to Larry Johnson's channel and follow his work at sonar21.com. Larry, thank you very much once again for these conversations.
Let's hope we're alive next week to talk about it.
Hoping.
All right, man.
That's
Later.
all we got.
Okay.
See you. Bye-bye.